Tonight we're talking all about meat. And that means we'll be figuring out how we'll probably be cooking meat in the year 2030.
Am I just a gross human? Like,
I'll take a stab at getting meat the old-fashioned way. Here's the ground venison, absolutely fresh smelling. And I'll show you the best way to make a prime rib for one in the present. Here's a filet mignon with a balsamic reduction. The interesting thing about it is that I'm cooking it with 3 highly precise, energy-efficient appliances that I'm convinced will be making their way into our kitchens in the near future. So here's our first new appliance. This is not a heating element like this stovetop that we use here. This is not getting hot. This is just a magnet that is exciting the molecules in this pan, and the pan is just heating itself. So this is not hot here. There's no heat loss with induction. It's probably the greenest way to cook. There's no gas. It's as fast as gas, turning on and turning off. And I mean, there I have clarified butter that is fully melted. Rub it into the board. In order to start building the flavor, we're gonna blowtorch it before and after. All right, cool. This is probably the newest kitchen utensil. In the olden days, and you remember a few years ago, I would just blowtorch directly onto meat to sear it, and that sort of left an unburnt fuel taste. Since then, the lovely culinary professionals of the world have figured out a way to make that taste go away. So, here is the searzall. Well, the flavor's there now. So now we started the caramelization process. I can already smell sort of a barbecue-y smell. And now, look, you can see obviously the meat is not cooked. Let's take this clarified butter. We're gonna pour it right into our bag here. Here's a few sprigs of thyme, and those will go right there like that. Now I wanna get all the air out of the bag. So what you do is you zip it across, and you just leave a little bit open. And as you pull down here, the pressure of the water pulls the air out of the bag. All right? And then you zip that last bit. And now you can see the air's out of the bag. We can set a temperature down here. I like to do it in centigrade. I think if I click it, it turns to Fahrenheit. So we're aiming for 134 degrees Fahrenheit. You can just put it in, it's fine. So here we go. The meat cannot overcook because we're never going above this temperature, because we're not cooking with air, so moisture isn't lost. It's all contained in this bag. We'll give it an hour. That will give us enough time for that 57 centigrade to penetrate to the center. And when we cut it, it should be seared on the outside and consistently, gently cooked all the way through to the center. So I'm really excited about this type of cooking. 2 years ago, it was really out of most people's price range, and really, really high-end chefs were using it, and like trains in Europe and planes in Europe. So it's the secret of the best chefs, but it's also the secret of food service, because you can make so many items perfectly, because you know, it's not, now we need to take it out, otherwise it's gonna overcook. No, it's more like, take it out in a 15-minute window, otherwise the texture will suffer slightly. I'm thinking that we'll cut up some shallots, we'll saute the heck out of them in the remainder of our clarified butter here, and then we'll add some cheap balsamic vinegar. We're at setting 1. Watch how fast when I turn this up, this comes to a boil. There's 9, there's 11. Boom, there it is. That's pretty cool. Reduce that down to almost a syrup. It has reduced. It's been 40 minutes. I'm gonna unplug this bad boy. And here is our, believe it or not, fully cooked sirloin filet. Put our grate over our dipping sauce, I guess. And this way, anything that falls from our beef will go directly into the sauce. We'll throw this in as well because, oh, amazing. Sous vide cooking doesn't leave a nice crust on the beef because it never reached a temperature where any caramelization is going to happen. We did a little bit before, so some caramelized flavor would be there as it was cooking in the bag, and that has softened up. And now we're going to do even more so that we get the actual crust, not just the flavor of the crust. See that right there? Let's just see what happens. Now it takes a second to bloom up, so it's gonna look a little gray at first, but it will come out lovelily. And the reason it needs to bloom is because there's no oxygen in that bag. All that oxygen gets really, really old, so you can see it right now, it's turning redder. It's so tender and juicy in here. And also you can notice no juices are running out because it's such a gentle cooking method, sous vide. It's not like extremely hot and then letting it rest so that everything settles back. It's just gentle. So all that juice stays inside.
Wow, look at the difference in
from bloom. Now they will become the same in a second. Am I just a gross human? Like,
No, man. I'm so envious.
Good texture. 40 minutes. Now the gray ring that formed, that's due to the blowtorch and that surface heat that was coming in. That's how normal cooking works. That's why you get gradients of doneness. But you can see how uniform this is here. Had I not blowtorched it, it would be uniformly done out to the edge. A dollop of our balsamic, sort of syrupy shallots. That is a piece of beef cooked with all weird modern instruments. This is sort of ridiculous, but it's also brilliant. This is kind of silly also, but it eliminates error. That means less food thrown away, you know? And we're already having a food problem shortage around the world. If everything is cooked perfectly, that's less waste. I think we should all be happy knowing that classic dishes will still be around. They're just going to be executed in a more consistent manner, you know, thanks to these tools. Look at how soft that is. Oh, yeah. First of all, the shallots with the reduced balsamic vinegar have a tangy, savory, sweet thing going on, which is really, really great and not overpowering. Actually, it complements the beef quite well. Sous vide beef, on the other hand, or any type of sous vide meat, is super interesting to me. Look at how soft it is. I'm not saying it's better. I'm not saying one method is better than the other. I'm just saying, is this better than a wood oven? No, it's not. It's easier, it's more convenient. So here we've got our like future beef. That's what I'm calling it, future beef. I have this crazy friend who bow hunts up in Westchester County, and one day he gave me the fruits of his labor. Fresh venison. And when I think about it, it's probably the most American meat, and nothing's more free-range organic. So what would Berlusconi do? He'd make a ragu of venison. We start with our sofrito. Something like that. So you want equal parts carrot and celery. So I like to go high heat here. All right. And now our onion. Oh, that is a rough onion today. All right. I am tearing like I haven't ever teared. There's like water coming down. Holy moly.
What the Florentines and the Cortinese, I guess, do is they add juniper berries to their ragus. It goes really well with gamey meat like wild boar and venison. Juniper berries are the main aromatic in gin. These will soften up after they braise in the tomato and the meat and all that stuff. Remember, always have a bottle of screw top white wine in your fridge. You can use it in all cooking applications. They're great. And this has been in here already a month. I've only used that much, but I've made so many dishes that much better because I've had it around. Just a small amount of wine. Just to take the stuff off the bottom of the pan. Let's see what we've got here. This is some meat that Tommy gave me. Here is some ground venison. We'll use that. Here's some chopped pieces. Let's use that also. And this is the point that I'm trying to drill home here. Some people might look at this and say it's inhumane. Some people might look at this and say, oh, it's disgusting. You know, when we do free-range organic, they're still confined. This was a true wild animal. This is the most primal thing and the most humane thing as far as meats go, honestly. Here's a little hair from the animal. I mean, you know, maybe that skeeves you out, and if it does, then you shouldn't be eating meat because this is the real deal. Here's the ground venison, you see? Beautiful. Absolutely fresh smelling. Super duper lean red meat that we got ourselves. Let's put this in. We're burning a little. Hang on, hang on. We'll cut these guys up into some smaller pieces so that there's some texture in there. The whole deer is very, very lean because he's not living on a human-fed diet and he's free to run around. If you've ever had venison and it turned you off, I think that there are two reasons. One, maybe the meat was tainted. The meat can be tainted by where the animal is pierced, essentially. If it's pierced through the digestive system, that taints the meat. The second reason you may or may not have liked it is that you know where it came from. When I lived in Florence, the ragu is called they call it cinghiale. They actually don't use the word ragu. So they say like tagliatelle al cinghiale, which is tagliatelle with wild boar. It's exactly the same ragu, it's just wild boar instead of venison. And it's something that happens in the late fall. Tomato paste. It's got a deep, rich tomato flavor. It's really hard to achieve that flavor with just a can of tomatoes unless you reduce it like crazy and then the sauce is too heavy. It's beautifully lean. You see how it's all separating, lovely? Lovely. Taste tester? Christopher, you want to come in? What do you think of that?
It's great.
Super dry.
It's great.
It's a really clean...
Fully moist and it's got the nice crunch with the carrots and just very flavorful, very good.
Does it taste too gamey?
It doesn't really even taste like game.
Would you know that it was venison?
Maybe not.
That's the point.
It could be beef. It could absolutely be beef.
There's really no reason to use fresh tomatoes for a ragu, unless you had a lot of them and you were trying to get rid of them. But it cooks so long that their freshness would be wasted on something like this. And the other thing we want to do is get the rest of that. So half a can of water. See that? Okay, so we're going to add that to our braising liquid as well. Stir it up. Nice. And we're going to cover it. I'm going to cook it on low for many hours. Here we have some water because we're going to boil some pasta. In the meantime, our sauce has been going for about 3 hours. It hasn't reduced at all because we've had a top on. So now's our chance to reduce it. Radiators. I wanted to feel like a little kid.
have some basil. And at the very end of cooking the sauce, I just like to put a few leaves in the sauce. This just sweetens up the sauce a little bit, and as we're reducing,
That's good.
put some basil in there. So now that this is al dente, go like that. I want to keep a little bit of the water. So here we have some Parmigiano on top, look. Cheese with a little bit of pasta water. We've got juniper berries. We deglaze with white wine, tomato paste, tomato sauce. Okay, that's nice, right there. Something like that. I like to show the juniper berry as well. I think it's really pretty. By the way, they're soft now. So there's a little juniper berry. Here we go. My guess is 9 out of 10 people wouldn't even know that this is deer meat. It's really, really delicious. Really yummy. It's 4:10 in the morning. I'm exhausted. I'm gonna go hunting with Tommy because I want to be more connected to the meat that I eat, and he offered to let me sit with him in the woods. So let's see what happens.
I got the beat.
Tommy starts by spraying me with deer scent. And once that's done, it's time to start weaponizing and head out into the dark woods.
Alright, here's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna carry this dog. You're just gonna walk. Because I've walked this 50 times.
Tommy knows these woods, and he knows he can only hit a target less than 50 yards away. So we wait. No deer sightings, we decide to mobilize and try to find something, making sure to walk single file so that our frontal area is small and less noticeable. There's movement up ahead. A gang of turkeys. We try to surround them, but we're too late. They get away. As we stay on the move, Tommy shows me some marks on the trees. They're fresh, and this is how bucks mark their territory. There must be deer nearby. We set up in a ground blind and start to wait again, staying still and quiet. I'm sure that I see something up on the ridge, but it turns out it's nothing. The squirrels are scurrying about. They can sense the rain coming. And as the sky darkens, it's time for a new approach. Next thing I know, I'm 20 feet up in a tree and the temperature's dropping rapidly. Rain is starting to fall. The situation is getting desperate. Time is running short. We decide to try everything we can to attract deer to us at this point, banging antlers together. And uses a grunt to make the sound of a buck claiming its territory. But in the end, no such luck. There'll be no fresh venison on this day. I appreciate that venison even more now. Hunting should be called waiting. I spent 6 hours out there. All I saw were turkeys like 100 yards away and a bunch of squirrels. Would I do it again? Of course I'd do it again. I didn't see any deer. They outsmarted me. Personally, filet mignon doesn't really do it for me. I want a bone-in prime rib, giant hunk of meat where the fat is just basting it for hours. You can definitely do this in your oven at home. And I've done it. It just doesn't have the same flavor as in a wood oven. So, I think it makes more sense to take that chop, cook it in a pan, baste it in butter with garlic and herbs. It's the way to go. All you need is salt and pepper because a great piece of meat like this should taste of meat and really not a whole lot else. So I thought we would make some mashed potatoes with this, but I like to do 50% celery root. I think it lightens it up, makes it way less heavy. So we start with a russet potato. It's got a high starch content, and that's gonna make it fall apart when we boil it in the water. You wouldn't want to use a waxy potato for something like this.
Our celery root. Must do the same.
Just gonna put some salt in the water. I really just want to boil the heck out of these. So here's a potato, and this is how soft it is. What one needs is a large cast iron skillet, and then one should place the heat on high. The salt here has pulled a little bit of moisture out. Well, if it's wet, then the first thing that the heat from the pan is going to do is bring up the temperature of the water until it can boil and evaporate away. If it's under the steak, it's going to steam up through the steak. And then rather than create a crust, it's going to open up the pores of the meat, and all the juices are going to spill out, and we're not going to get a crust.
Olive oil is a terrible idea. It's going to break down at like 350 degrees, which is entirely too low.
A little bit of grapeseed oil, which has a very high smoke point. Look at that. Nice sear. Okay? There's a little in the middle there. So that's why we're putting the oil in the pan, you see, because that middle part is shrinking up, and when you have oil, it kind of makes up for the inconsistencies in the non-linearity of the steak. A deep fry obviously cooks everything because nothing isn't touched by the hot oil. All right, we have a nice sear. We're gonna go into the oven now. Now that our potatoes and celery roots have been boiled to oblivion, we will dump them. Whew. Rather than heavy cream, I go with the creme fraiche, and we can use a healthy amount of that. A little whisk. My whisk is too small. 1, 2, steak coming out. Ready for our next move? 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm gonna throw our crushed garlic in there as well. We're gonna come back on our high heat over here. We're at 49 centigrade. I know I wanna get to about 55. So this is the perfect amount of time for us to get the basting that we need to do done. Get a non-silver spoon. Put the thyme on top so it doesn't pop. Yeah, silver spoon's gonna attract a lot of heat. Your hand's gonna burn. Now you need to let this rest, and you can't just put it on a plate, because if you put it on a plate, the same thing's gonna happen that if you didn't dry off your meat, which is that you're gonna create a steam layer, and the pores are gonna open and all the juice is gonna fall out. So, perhaps your argument is, gee, Frank, I don't have a cooling rack. Well, that's okay. Nowadays, everyone's selling sushi. These sticks will work just fine. All right. Should we put a little steak butter in there? We can throw that garlic in there as well. We're gonna redirect the flow of the resting juices. Now, all these juices right here, right into potatoes. So the first thing we'll do is we'll cut the bone off. All right. That right there. This is called the chuck roll. This is one of the most delicious things ever. And you can see the fibers are going this way. And we want to cut against the fibers. Like that. If you have a dull knife, you're going to be pushing, and again, you're going to push juices out of the steak. See, so I'm sort of sawing very lightly, and I'm putting almost no pressure. Okay? And now we can just sort of take our knife and push it down, and it'll fan. So we can put some right here, like that.
piece right in here because it looks great. And you can see it's very, very, very juicy. Delicious crust. The finishing salt is super duper important. I don't think it really gets a whole lot better than that in an apartment. The butter basted on there is so good. This is Luke. He writes all the music for the show. Why don't you come off the bone here?
Yeah?
Yeah, that's gonna be good. Is it better than the prime rib? It's not better than the prime rib in the oven, but it's still really good.
It's really good.
Okay. We like to be honest on Frankie Cooks. What do you think of the finishing salt? Yeah, that's the chuck roll.
Chuck roll.
So good.
The thyme is really delicious, particularly.
Totally worth it.
Let's try some of these non-starch potatoes.
Well, they're starch, they're just reduced starch. Right? Nice and light.
I love the celery root. I think it's really good. And I like that you didn't really mash it, too.
Yeah.
There's still kind of little squares.
You know, when it's too mashed, it looks like it came out of a box, don't you think?
It's got some texture.
It's got some texture, but it still falls apart. It's not like you're
Still
chewing
totally
on
As
it.
soon as it's in there, it's gone.
Exactly.